In a small corner of the business class lounge, Mrs. Hong Mai, an elderly woman in her 70s, sat quietly. She wore a faded jade green ao dai. The thin silk fabric gently embraced her petite figure. Her bony hands lightly smoothed the edge of her dress, as if she were holding onto a fragment of past hardships. She didn't carry a large suitcase, just a small handbag beside her. Her eyes quietly gazed out the large glass window, where the light from an airplane shimmered on the dew-covered runway. A middle-aged man nearby glanced at her and whispered to his companion, "Look at that old lady over there. Why would she be here? That outfit doesn't look like someone flying business class." The woman next to him chuckled softly, her tone laced with contempt. "Maybe she's lost. She definitely doesn't belong to this class." Though whispered, their words were loud enough for a few other passengers to hear. Curious and judgmental glances began to turn toward Mrs. Mai. Still, she remained composed, her distant gaze unfazed by what was happening around her. At the lounge entrance, Nguyen Thu, a young flight attendant, entered confidently. She wore a tastefully designed uniform that highlighted her slim figure and youthful charm. With 3 years of experience in the industry, Thu took pride in working for the country's top airline. However, that pride sometimes turned into quiet arrogance. She believed that business class passengers were people of wealth and status, or at least should look the part. As she entered the lounge, Thu's eyes scanned the room, quickly recognizing familiar faces: businessmen, celebrities, and political figures. But then, her gaze landed on something different. Mrs. Mai in her faded dress. Thu frowned slightly, wondering, how did someone like her end up here? She brushed off the thought, assuming the woman was probably accompanying another passenger and didn't warrant further attention. Time passed. The announcement came for business class passengers to board first. Thu moved to the boarding gate. Performing the final checks, well-dressed passengers began walking through, and she greeted them with a polished smile. When Mrs. Mai approached, Thu was momentarily surprised. She tried to maintain composure, though a hint of skepticism crept into her expression. "Ma'am, this gate is for business class. May I see your ticket?" she asked. Mrs. Mai gently pulled a crumpled ticket from her bag. It clearly read business class. Thu checked the ticket, still filled with doubt. Her eyes flicked over the old dress again before reluctantly nodding and letting her through. Probably a mistake, Thu thought. In the business class cabin, Mrs. Mai chose a seat by the window and quietly sat down. Other passengers took their places. Once again, curious stares were directed her way. A young woman in a designer dress sitting opposite whispered to her seatmate, "I really don't understand how she could afford a business class ticket." Meanwhile, Mrs. Mai remained silent. She pulled out an old, worn book from her bag and carefully turned its pages, her eyes absorbed in the text, seemingly escaping the judgmental stares around her. But her silence only seemed to provoke more scrutiny. The flight began to settle after takeoff. Soft lights were dimmed for passenger comfort. Flight attendants moved gracefully through the cabin, offering drinks and hot towels. Thu continued to glance toward Mrs. Mai, unable to comprehend how someone with such a modest appearance could belong in this elegant space. Driven by a growing discomfort, she approached again under the pretense of rechecking the ticket. "Ma'am, I'd like to check your ticket again, just to ensure there's no mistake," she said, her tone still polite but noticeably colder. Mrs. Mai calmly handed over the same crumpled ticket, her hands trembling slightly, but without worry. Thu scrutinized it more closely this time. Everything matched: the seat, the name, the class. Still, a sense of dissatisfaction lingered. She returned the ticket but couldn't help commenting, "I've just never seen anyone in business class dressed like that. You might be more comfortable in economy." Mrs. Mai looked at her with calm, deep eyes. Without a word, she took back the ticket and resumed reading. Around them, passengers began paying more attention. Some whispered. Others expressed open irritation. "This is ridiculous," muttered a man in a suit. "If she's not in the right class, just move her to economy." A woman in a glamorous red dress sneered. "She probably bought an economy ticket and snuck up here." Unbelievable. The murmurs only bolstered Thu's belief that she was right. "I have to handle this," she thought, then approached Mrs. Mai again. This time, her voice was firmer, less courteous. "Ma'am, I've checked your ticket, but I still don't think you belong here. That dress of yours just doesn't meet our business class standards." Mrs. Mai looked up again. Her voice was soft but clear. "You think I don't deserve to be here just because of what I'm wearing?" Thu hesitated, trying to keep her tone firm. That's not what I meant, but if you can't justify your presence, I'll have to report this to the captain. Her words stunned not only Mrs. Mai but the entire cabin. Curious and mocking eyes turned toward them. Some began secretly recording the exchange. Mrs. Mai silently closed her book and met Thu's gaze, her once gentle eyes now sharp, piercing deep into Thu's conscience. So, you believe if I don't look the part, I should leave? Her voice remained soft but carried undeniable authority. The crowd leaned in, as if watching a drama unfold. Thu, feeling the weight of the stares, struggled to stay composed, then let the captain decide, she said loudly. Walking briskly to the back of the cabin to make the call, feeling a sense of vindication, she believed the situation would soon be fixed. The old woman would be sent back to economy, and everything would return to its proper order. She didn't know she had just lit the fuse for a storm she couldn't imagine. Back in the cabin, passengers watched closely. Some still recorded. Others pretended not to care, though their eyes betrayed their interest. Mrs. Mai sat still, hands on her lap, serene and unbothered. The cockpit door opened. Captain Tran Van Hong, a tall, commanding man in full uniform with golden epaulettes, stepped out. His eyes scanned the rows until they stopped at Mrs. Mai and Thu. A flicker of annoyance passed over his face, not at Mrs. Mai, but at the scene itself. In a deep, authoritative voice, he asked, "What's going on here?" Thu stepped forward, confident. "Captain, this passenger doesn't meet business class standards. I've checked her ticket, but something doesn't seem right. I need your judgment." The captain frowned, turned to Mrs. Mai, and respectfully extended his hand. "Ma'am, may I please see your ticket again?" Mrs. Mai wordlessly handed it over. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze remained calm. The captain examined the ticket. His eyes paused at a bolded line, "Business class, Hong Mai." Then he noticed a small note in the corner. His expression shifted from surprise to confusion, then to shock, looking up at her. His voice trembled with unexpected reverence. "Mom, are you the chairwoman of this airline?" The cabin fell completely silent. Everyone froze. Those who had been whispering, filming, or mocking stood stiff. Thu stood petrified. The pieces began to click together. The woman's silence, her serene gaze, the perfect ticket. "She's the founder of the airline I work for," Thu whispered to herself, a chill running down her spine. The captain bowed slightly, nearly stammering, "Ma'am, I had no idea you were aboard this flight. Please forgive our disrespect." But Mrs. Mai didn't immediately reply. Her eyes rested on Thu, who stood shaking, hands clenched. Everyone held their breath. Finally Mrs. Mai spoke, her voice deep and resonant in the quiet cabin. "If I weren't the chairwoman, would you all still think it was acceptable to treat me like this?" Thu lowered her head, her voice trembling. I didn't know, I didn't mean to." Mrs. Mai interrupted, eyes steely. "Not knowing who I am isn't the issue. Believing you have the right to judge someone solely by their appearance, that's what disappoints me." Her words sliced through the air like a blade. Every passenger lowered their gaze in shame. A young man who had been recording quietly slipped his phone into his pocket. Mrs. Mai turned to the captain. "This isn't just her mistake. It's a system failure, system that's forgotten the core value of service. Respect." The captain nodded solemnly. "Ma'am, I promise we will address this thoroughly." But Mrs. Mai wasn't done. Her eyes scanned the cabin. "Not just her. Every one of you who stayed silent or laughed while someone was being belittled, you are all responsible." Not a single soul dared say a word.